Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. When you hear marine painter, you might think, okay, someone who paints boats, right?
Right.
And while that's kind of true, there's a whole lot more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're really excited to unpack this career path today using these awesome guides from RoleCatcher. They're a fantastic resource for anyone, by the way, who's, trying to figure out their next career move.
I was just going to say, yeah, whether you're just starting out or thinking of switching things up, super helpful.
Totally. Okay, so one of the first things that jumped out at me about marine painting was, honestly, the sheer range of tasks involved. I mean, we see words like blasting, hull washing, even something called protection jobs. So it's clearly not just about picking out the right shade of blue, right?
Right. Haha. No, not quite. I mean, think about it. Those huge cargo ships, those cruise liners, they're up against some of the toughest conditions imaginable, constantly exposed to the elements. So marine painting, it's really all about ensuring those vessels can handle the wear and tear, the salt water, the sun, everything. It's a critical part of shipbuilding, but
Mm.
also the ongoing maintenance, keeping those ships afloat and sailing smoothly.
It really makes you appreciate those ships in a whole new way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about looking good out on the water. It's about serious protection, durability.
Exactly, it's essential.
Mm.
And to achieve that level of protection, you need a very meticulous, precise approach. One thing that really stands out from these role catcher guides is the emphasis on strict guidelines, procedures, really specific ways of doing
Okay, so we're
things.
not talking about like a free-flowing artistic free-for-all here then.
Not at all, no. Precision is absolutely key in this field. I mean, think about it. You're working with these specialized coatings that are literally protecting a multi-million-dollar vessel.
Yeah, no pressure.
Right. There's very little room for error, and safety is absolutely paramount.
Wow, that is high stakes. And speaking of changing things up, one thing I found fascinating in the role catcher research was how technology is actually transforming this field. I mean, it's not something you'd immediately think of as being on the cutting edge, but they talk about robotics, new materials. It's evolving quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. We're seeing things like robotic blasting becoming increasingly common, especially for surface prep. It's much faster, more precise than traditional methods, and of course, way safer for the workers. And then on top of that, the coatings themselves, what's actually being applied, those formulations are evolving too. We're talking about coatings that are even more durable, more environmentally friendly. It's really amazing how much progress is being made.
It's, it's credible. I had no idea it was changing so rapidly. Okay, so we've established that marine painting is a lot more technical, demanding,
Yeah.
higher stakes than it might seem at first glance. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. What about the day-to-day reality of the job? Because, I mean, let's be real, the role catcher guide, it doesn't exactly paint, no pun intended,
Huh.
a glamorous picture of the work environment. Noisy, dusty, dirty, potentially dangerous. Are they being totally honest here? What's it really like out there?
Well, let's just say it's not always, well, it's definitely not a desk job, that's for sure.
Right.
You're often working outdoors, right? You've got the
Yeah.
elements to contend with, often at significant heights. I mean, we are talking about the sides of ships here. So, yeah, you're dealing with weather, you're
Yeah.
handling some pretty heavy duty industrial strength materials. It's a demanding job, no doubt.
So it's not just about having, a steady hand with a paintbrush. You need a certain level of like physical and mental toughness to really hack it in this kind of environment.
I would say so, yeah. And that's something I think RoleCatcher does a really good job of conveying. Like, they've got this one story. It's about a marine painter. Her name is Sarah, and she's working on this massive cargo ship during a heat wave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the temperatures on the deck were just, I mean, soaring, right? Crazy deadlines, too. But she still manages to rally her team, they problem solve on the fly, and ultimately they get the job done safely and efficiently.
See, that's what I love about RoleCatcher, these deep dives that we get to do with their guides.
Mhm.
It's like you get those real world glimpses into a career beyond just like the bullet points of a job description.
Yeah.
It's not always pretty, but there's definitely a sense of accomplishment there, right? Like overcoming those challenges.
Huge sense of accomplishment, yeah, for sure. And speaking of challenges, I think it's worth looking at the career progression side of things for marine painters because it's not just about, climbing a ladder, right? It seems like it's more about expanding your skill set, taking on more responsibility, really developing as a leader in the field.
Yeah, and RoleCatcher breaks down like the typical career stages.
Right.
And what I found interesting was how marine painters, they can actually go from that very hands-on work,
Yeah.
right, to actually mentoring, even leading entire teams. which isn't a path you'd necessarily expect, I think, with a more quote-unquote trade kind of career.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting, I think. It's like you can start as an apprentice, you're learning the ropes, literally, from those experienced painters. And from there, you can work your way up to becoming, a supervisor, a project manager even.
So you're not just becoming a better painter, you're becoming like a leader, a mentor,
Yeah.
a problem solver, but on a whole other level.
Exactly, precisely. And that kind of well-rounded expertise, that's what's really valued in the industry. Like RoleCatcher gives this example, a senior marine painter, a guy named David, he started as an apprentice, and now he oversees these massive projects for like a whole shipyard. He's responsible for everything. I mean, budgeting, scheduling, quality control, training new recruits.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's a testament to how much you can actually achieve in this career with the right amount of dedication and just a willingness to learn.
That's really inspiring, honestly. Shows that there are so many different paths to success, even within like what we might think of as a very specific field. And it's not just about the artistic talent, right? It's about hard work, leadership, that continuous learning.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, RoleCatcher also goes really in depth on like the very specific skills that are needed to thrive as a marine painter. What stood out to you in that department?
Well, one thing that really jumped out at me, I mean, you've already touched on it, but they really emphasize problem solving. It's like you're working on these massive, complex structures, often in less than ideal conditions, so things are bound to come up, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely not like you're in a climate-controlled studio just, following a paint-by-numbers guide. You might run into unexpected corrosion. You've got weather delays. Sometimes you have to get really creative just to access certain areas of a ship. So you're not just a painter. You're part engineer, part adventurer, too.
Aha, that's a great way to put it. It's a very multifaceted skill set.
Yeah.
And that actually ties into another thing RoleCatcher emphasizes, the continuous learning aspect. Because the maritime industry, it's constantly evolving, right? New technologies, new materials, environmental regulations. Marine painters who really thrive are the ones who stay curious and really embrace those advancements.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change, right?
Exactly. And RoleCatcher, they actually provide some really great resources for staying ahead of the curve, let's say. There's a whole section on professional development, links to industry publications, training courses, even networking events specifically for marine painters.
It's like having a career coach right in your pocket. I love that about them. It's not just about finding a job. It's about building a fulfilling career long term, no matter what your field is. So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the world of marine painting here, I gotta say, I'm walking away with a whole new appreciation for what these folks do. It's demanding work, detail-oriented, constantly evolving, but it's also clearly very rewarding. The craftsmanship, the teamwork, you're contributing to this massive global industry.
Absolutely.
A huge thank you to you, by the way, for sharing your expertise. It's really brought this career path to life for us in a way that, just reading a list of job duties never could.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
And for our listeners, here's a final thought I'll leave you with. It's easy to get caught up in the familiar, right? But as we've seen today, even a career path that seems, kind of niche or maybe even a bit mysterious can be full of hidden depths and unexpected rewards. So next time you find yourself wondering, what if? Well, hey, don't be afraid to dive in, do some research. You never know what hidden gems you might uncover. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.